The acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kudirat Kekereekun, has said she will not tolerate any act of corruption in the judiciary on her watch. She vows to instill the highest level of discipline in judiciary, deal decisively with erring judicial officers who indulge in conflicting court judgments, and those who deliberately abuse court processes. Kekereekun issued the stern warnings to clean the Ogian stable when she appeared before the Senate for screening and confirmation of her appointment on Wednesday. Arise correspondent Omo Bazwaye has the details.
After being sworn in as acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kudirat Kekereekun steps into the hallowed chamber for a mandatory screening and confirmation by lawmakers. Kekereekun, who was accompanied by the upper echelons of Nigeria's judiciary, quickly settled in, taking tough questions from lawmakers and in most cases, reading the Riot Act.
If confirmed, what steps are you going to take to ensure the independence of the judiciary?
The Chief Justice vowed to stamp out corruption in the judiciary and deal ruthlessly with erring judicial officers.
In order to ensure that the integrity of the judiciary is maintained, I will ensure that the code of conduct is fully complied with. I will ensure that there is zero tolerance for corruption.
She promised to exhibit the highest level of integrity and discipline in the judiciary, warning sternly that the days of conflicting court judgments are over and that any judicial officer found culpable, abusing court processes or trying to mislead the court would face sanctions. She frowns at a disturbing trend that sees judges indiscriminately issuing ex parte motions. These two, on what she says, would attract serious punishment.
If there's a situation where a judge is found to have ex parte orders prepared in advance, such a judge should be reported to the NJC and necessary action will be taken. It is not fair, even on the judiciary, when these allegations are made and nothing is done to substantiate them or to follow up on them. And we know that even when petitions are filed before the NJC, in some instances, you find that the petitioner comes back and withdraws the petition. So it is important for the NJC to be able to exercise its own powers that these sort of matters are brought to its attention. And then the grant of ex parte order is discretionary, but there are guidelines. So where a judge is found to have ignored those guidelines, to have acted without due regard to proper process or even the facts of the matter, then the necessary action will be taken once it is brought to the attention of the National Judicial Council.
President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, wanted to know what she will do to lawyers who are fond of discussing pending cases on television.
Under your tenure,
yes,
will there be a procedure where you bring some of them to justice? Because they ought not to, because their comments and their analysis tend to influence the final outcome of those cases, and in most instances tend to bring about injustice, because they are not aware, they are not sayers of the facts that are before their lordships.
Yes.
But they will go out there, instead of arguing the cases in the court, they will go and sit down on television and be arguing the cases on television.
Kekereekun replied with another stern warning to those who indulge in such contempt of court.
A senior member of the bar who has earned the rank of silk, it's a privilege. It's not a right, and that privilege could be withdrawn if it is abused. So in any of these situations, the courts too will use their own powers. We do have powers where a matter is sub judice and somebody goes out in public on the television station, media, social media, to comment on those cases, because it does have a negative effect on the administration of justice, on how we handle our cases. Because when you then give a judgment, the the way it is assessed is based on what has been in social media. But notwithstanding that, I would say that judges know the oath they have taken and will abide by that oath and not be influenced by social media.
Kekereekun hopes to embrace technology, including virtual court sittings, to speed up cases, even as she advised courts to fine-tune their rules and eliminate unnecessary bottlenecks. According to her, pre-election matters should terminate at the Court of Appeal to allow the Supreme Court deal with pressing policy matters. After roughly 2 hours of screening, Senate finds Kekereekun fit for the job and swiftly confirmed her. President Bola Tinubu had in August appointed Kudirat Kekereekun as acting Chief Justice of Nigeria following the retirement of Justice Olukayode Ariwola. Kekereekun stands on the threshold of history as the 23rd Chief Justice of Nigeria and the second woman to occupy the seat. Omo Bazwai, Arise News.
Thank you, Omo, for that robust report. Of course, I'm very delighted to see the second female Chief Justice of Nigeria being confirmed by the Senate. We had talked about her at length when Justice Olukayode Ariwola had retired in August and just examined her antecedents and now looking forward to what her tenure would look like. Your take on this story, Rufai.
I mean, at first I'd like to say congratulations to Justice Kekereekun on this confirmation. Like we say, we all see the symbolism of it, the second woman to hold this position after Madam Mukhtar. And when you look at it, yeah, she said a lot of very salient things, but I'm just going to go straight to the point. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Number one, for you to have reforms in the judicial system, you must be able to start those reforms from yourself. And when I mean yourself, the benches, the judges that are higher up there. So what integrity will they bring there? The first reform I would like to see is the CJN not even being the head of the NJC, which is a reform that a lot of people have clamored for.
Yes.
Secondly, full digitization of the legal system, which you spoke about. But I'll take it one step further by saying, to be able to mitigate the incidence of having multiple conflicting judgments, why don't you have a general server, whereas any judgment is made in any part of the country, it's uploaded there. So you can have a duplicity of that judgment. Anywhere, you can see it in real time. Thirdly, she spoke about the case of welfare, which is good, and kudos to President Tinubu on signing in, and the National Assembly on signing in that for workers. Another thing she talked about, judges. She said lawyers speaking about cases as sub judice. No, it's not only lawyers, judges. We remember the case of electoral petition somewhere in the north, where the judge I was sitting on that petition openly was defending the judgment of the electoral petition when they were still going to take that judgment to a higher up court. So judges too have been known to put on this. Also, judges frolicking with the political class. I mean, we have stories ad nauseum as regards that. Also, the integrity of the judiciary. Yeah, she talked about that. She said, okay, if you increase their take-home pay, their general infrastructure, it will also. But apart from the increase of the take-home pay, the integrity of the judiciary still matters a great deal.
All right, Dr. Batim.
Okay, yesterday, Justice Kudirat Motomori Olatokunbo Kekereekun was confirmed as the Justice of the Supreme Court. Well, that was to be expected. It's just basic procedure. You become the CJN on the basis of superiority and perhaps, seniority. But I think the important thing is that we now have a Chief Justice of the Federation that a lot of people within the community, the legal community say, has a very high moral standing, a robust intellectual pedigree, and that, this is like a new dawn for the, Supreme Court, the judiciary in Nigeria. However, there have been some controversies in her career. First, from the High Court of Lagos State, and she rose to the Court of Appeal, and she became, a Supreme Court Justice in June 2013. I was in government at that time. And I know that there were some people saying, no, she's not this and that. But eventually she made it. A vindication of the of the decision taken at that time. Now, as a Supreme Court Justice, people say, well, in Hope Uzodinma versus Emeka Ihodioha, Adeleke versus Oyetola, Wike versus Dakuku Peter side, they don't agree. Well, judicial decisions are open to public opinion for review. But the received opinion is that this is a judge, who interprets the law as it is. But what will be the implication of all of this? Two, let me go to the biographical side. I think congratulations, not just to the Kekere Ekun family, where she, where her husband comes from. Congratulations also to the Fasinro family, Pa Echere Fasinro, who is the father, and also to Queen's College, producing the, the second female Justice of the Supreme Court, and to University of Lagos Faculty of Law, 1980 set, producing the second female CJN of Nigeria. In that faculty, you look around, you see some of these girls, one day they could just end up, like Justice Kekere Ekun. So the celebration is everywhere. And to Lagos State, we'll be saying, well, from the Lagos State Judiciary, we have the CJN of Nigeria. Now to some of the issues he has raised. We had one, a point about digitalizing the judicial process, which is important to the speedy delivery, of justice. A point about judges who abuse ex parte orders that will be sanctioned. I hope that she will do that. We will hold on to that. 3, she has to maintain a reasonable distance from politicians, particularly the executive. We have seen in this country where judges at all levels have become social animals. Jollofing and pepper souping judges, you go to Owambe parties, they say Milos are sitting in that place, and you see them gulping drinks. No, judges are not supposed to be social animals. And I think that His Lordship, will enforce all of that. And then she says there will be zero tolerance for corruption. That is also very important. Why do people complain about judiciary? They say the judiciary has been compromised. Judges are no longer dispensing justice. Justice Kekere Ekun should rely on her reputation as a judge as a justice of high moral standing to say that this will not be allowed under my watch. I hope also, I'm trying to summarize now, that she will look at the final statement by Justice Mohammed Datijo about the kind of reforms that he would like to see in his valedictory speech, when he was leaving. Well, one of the things he was asking for is that, the CJN is too powerful. The CJN of Nigeria is in charge of the judiciary, is in charge of disciplinary committee, is in charge of everything. Well, I know it's a constitutional issue, but is it possible that a sitting CJN will want to reduce our own powers? There are other, areas of reform that the legal community has been asking for. But now people can look forward to a new tenure. She's 66. That means, she's here for the next 4 years. And when we review our performance 4 years from hence, if I'm still on television, that is, these are some of the issues, that we will remind her and say, well, my Lord, these were the things you promised. Did you deliver?
Absolutely. And Dr. Bati, you're not going anywhere in the next 4 years. So perish that thought.
Sure. I'm beginning to get bored.
Oh, okay. But we need to make things, spice things up so that you're not bored. And then, of course, we continue to do our own work on this side of the table. Congratulations, first of all, are in order, as we've all said, to Justice Kudirat Kekere Ekun and, of course, the Fashion Royal family, and just being able to produce the second CJN here in Nigeria. But a number of things that she mentioned, and I think it's important important at this time, before we move on to the next story, to take her back to some of the recommendations from that joint conference where we had the NBA, the Ministry of Justice, and the CJN put together the conference under the former Chief Justice of Nigeria and put forward some key reforms that must happen for just the judicial reform in Nigeria. One of such things, of course, which has been highlighted a number of times is digitization. During COVID-19, we saw how important it was where a number of other countries embraced this, because prior to that, not many countries had embraced digitizing court processes, having virtual court proceedings being held. And we've seen that at least during the last election cycle where that worked. Of course, not without its own criticisms or without its own, certain areas that still need to be ironed out. But in going forward and in addressing this plague of inefficiencies in the judicial system in Nigeria, we must be willing to embrace that. In order for that to happen, there are other stakeholders that are involved. And so it's one thing to say that, yes, she's going to embrace technology in order to make the court processes more efficient, but it's another thing to ensure that there's the infrastructure and the environment to make it thrive will work. And of course that the Nigerian factor doesn't happen to it where we begin to poke holes in there. But beyond that is also her stance on discipline and restoring the integrity of the judiciary. I emphasized on this morning because we called during the last election cycle, there were billboards in certain parts of the country that had all eyes on the judiciary. And we've seen more and more in recent times how the judiciary have played quite significant roles in the outcome of elections and the outcome of who ends up becoming, perhaps who they rule in terms of who ends up becoming governor or president. And so since she's only 66 years old, it means that she has one election cycle to oversee. And so very importantly, leading up to that would be holding her to the words that she has spoken, or she spoke yesterday at Senate, that she would be a woman who is known as a disciplinarian and would restore the integrity of the judiciary. A lot of people have talked about how critical, or we understand how critical the judiciary is when it comes to democracy, a thriving democracy. And if truth be told, in recent times, the judiciary hasn't been in very good light. In many instances, we've tried very much to respect that institution, but in many areas as well, it has come under a lot of criticism. So she has a lot of work in almost cleaning up the image and restoring the confidence in the judiciary by Nigerians. So we wish her all the best. It's not an easy task ahead. She would have people who would praise and people who would criticize. But what we're hoping for is that, as she said yesterday, that she would do her best to uphold the integrity of the judiciary, uphold the rule of law, and defend the Constitution of Nigeria. All the best, my lord. On the sidelines of the ongoing UN General Assembly, UBA, United Bank for Africa, celebrated 40 years of its presence in America, as well as the group's 75th anniversary of operation. At a star-studded event in New York City, Tony Elumelu talks to Rise News about the journey so far and what he has in mind for the bank and beyond.
This is our 75th year of operation. At the same time, this is our 40th anniversary in the USA. We are the only African bank that operates here. We help to provide capital funds for African businesses. We follow African businesses. We support African people. And we also help to facilitate trade between North Africa and the rest of the world. So we are happy to be welcoming Africans who are here for the United Nations General Assembly. And more interesting that is coincided with our 40th anniversary. We want this to be done every year to say welcome to Africans, because if United Bank of Africa, that is for Africa, and that is Africa's global bank operates in America, and Africans are here for UNGA, UNGA, we should, as our brothers and sisters keepers, say welcome to Africa organization in America. So it's a thing of joy and happiness to us, and we're happy that African presidents, African friends, they have all come here today. And I said to them, this being here is an honor not to Tuneli Melu, but an honor to all of Africa. I love to democratize happiness. I love to democratize prosperity in Africa and in the world. The future belongs to our young people. I do not think that our young ones are prioritized well enough. So I want to play my own role while I'm alive to prioritize young people. Even when I'm gone, the Tony Melu Foundation will continue to do that.
I feel that everyone has the opportunity and everyone deserves to be educated, because with education we have the potential to do so many other things in our lives. We get to also influence other people positively and also make contributions into our own lives.
We need to create an inclusive society, especially for our women. We need to make sure, and that's the conversation I have everywhere. I was with Bill Clinton and other global leaders, and we had a conversation, and I said, what's important to me is that we have an equitable energy transition, because in Africa, access to electricity is very poor, and when we talk of energy transition, we should look at it from that perspective, that it must be equitable and must be beneficial to and for Africans. So I'm happy at what is happening, but there's so much more to be done, and my legacy, finally, as you say, is not going to be defined by the money I have, but it should be defined by the impact that I create, by the lives that I touch, about the happiness I brought to people, about the hope I give to people. That to me is what's important, and I want to do it while I'm alive and beyond.
Well, congratulations to UBA and of course the chairman, Mr. Tony Elumelu. And like you rightly said, the future of Africa is the youth, the young people, with over 60% of its population, of course, being less than 35 years old.